This video is brought to you by Surfshark. All right, check it out. I can't tell if this press conference that Caroline Leavitt just wrapped up was more scary or embarrassing, but we have no time to waste, so let me walk you through some key moments that occurred. Just to lay the groundwork, the past 24 hours have been uniquely grim. Just yesterday, a lone gunman targeted and attacked a Catholic school in Minneapolis, killing 2 children and wounding many, many more. Then overnight, 19 people were killed in Ukraine after Russia relentlessly struck them with drones and missiles. Multiple children died and 19 people in total died. So waking up this morning, the headlines were already quite grim. And heading into this press conference, Caroline Leavitt was supposed to be walking a tightrope of empathy, but the questions that were asked and the answers that we hear only make the situation so much worse. Again, we have no time to waste, so let's start off with this clip. One of the first questions asked about the school shooting that happened in Minneapolis yesterday was not about the victims or the families of the victims or the parents or the children that passed. It was about transgender Americans and whether doctors who prescribe gender-affirming care should be punished. This question drives me so crazy, but before I go off, I'm going to play the clip.
Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. I have a couple questions on the shooting yesterday. The first one, this is the second shooting involving a trans-identifying shooter who specifically targeted Christians and Catholic kids. What kind of consequences do the gender-affirming therapists, doctors, or even the parents of these shooters face after these types of shootings?
Well, as for the parents and potential therapists in this case, again, all of that is still currently being investigated by the FBI. I know the Secretary of Health and Human Services this morning said that HHS is investigating perhaps links between some of these drugs and these prescription drugs that some of these minors may be taking and an increase in violence. And obviously we have mental health problems in this country that this administration and Secretary Kennedy will continue to speak.
All right, this is absolutely absurd and scary and pissed me off for a few reasons. Just to lay the groundwork, this shooting was absolutely tragic. I don't want to undermine that at all. And the person who committed this shooting is a vile human being who deserves the absolute worst. All of that being said, it is absolutely absurd to try to target the doctors or blame the doctors when this is a repeated pattern that happens downstream from gun accessibility, not drug accessibility. Transgender people exist in many other countries, but the amount of shootings that exist in America are unique to America. And the answer is not to take away everybody's guns. That has never been the answer that anybody's ever proposed. I am not for that, but there are definitely common sense laws that can be in place that have nothing to do with whether or not you are transgender. And what also pisses me off is I can point to hundreds of shootings over the past decades of literal white supremacists. I have a list right here. There's a Tree of Life synagogue shooting in 2018. Then there was the El Paso Walmart shooting in 2019. Then there was a Buffalo Supermart shooting. Then there was a First Baptist Church shooting in Sutherland Springs, Texas. Then a Sikh temple was shot up in 2012. Then in Charleston, there was a church shooting in 2015. All of these things are equally awful. I'm not trying to undermine one or say that one is worse than the other, but it is so sick to take 1 or 2 shootings, turn them into culture war wedges, and then try to attack a specific identity just based off these. Now, the next question that was asked, surprise, surprise, was not any better. It was not about the children. It was not about the victims. It was not about gun accessibility.
I've seen a lot of calls for action, among these lawmakers saying that we shouldn't just be praying. One that I've seen on the right, actually, is calls for the FBI to institute a new class of domestic terrorism that involves trans ideology. Is that something that the administration would support?
That is what you're going to focus on? A new strain of domestic terrorism that focuses on trans people. I mean, I can go through this list again, but 10 black people were murdered in Buffalo, New York after the Buffalo supermarket shooting. 23 people were killed in El Paso, Texas after somebody had white supremacism and markings into their gun, etched into their gun. This is not a competition for which one is the worst, and I don't want to turn it into that. It's all incredibly tragic, but the idea that you need to target people based on their identity is insane. If you're going to do that, start with white supremacists. All right, let's go on to this next clip because this is where things get even more bizarre. Caroline Leavitt gets asked about Ukraine and the amount of deaths that we've seen over the past 24 to 48 hours, really over the past 7 months, because ever since Donald Trump took office, we have seen an incredible increase in the amount of drone strikes, the relentlessness of the drone strikes coming from Russia, because Putin knows that Trump will not stand up to him or arm Ukraine in the same way that Biden did. I'm going to play this clip, but I first just want to point out, friend of the show Luke Beasley is currently on the ground in Ukraine. Drop a blue heart for Luke Beasley. Drop a like for Luke Beasley. This reads, as we were driving back into Kyiv early this morning, an hours-long Russian attack on the city was underway. We watched as missiles and drones flew overhead, ultimately killing at least 18 people, including children. One of the strikes happened right in front of us. We were some of the first people on the scene. Absolutely horrific. This is what Putin wants. Terror, death, all in the pursuit of power. Let's watch this clip.
Behind me is the immediate aftermath of a Russian strike.
Whoa, they see that's right ahead.
It was right above the church.
A missile was sent into, it looks like this building, but everything around me is destroyed. This entire street, cars destroyed, first responders just getting here. I saw a body being carried, different wounds being treated. Not exactly sure yet the magnitude, other than what you can see visually, but deeply disturbing. And this is what Russia's doing. Right as we're driving, something's falling on me, into the city. This is happening.
Shout out to friend of the show, Luke Beasley, who is in Ukraine reporting on the ground. I will link him in the description below. And what he's talking about are the strikes that happened overnight. 19 killed in intense Russian strikes. After a night of intense bombardment by Russia, Ukrainian search and rescue teams are still picking through the rubble. The reason why this infuriates me is because Donald Trump said that there would be, quote, very severe consequences. Those are the words he used. Very severe consequences if Vladimir Putin didn't stop striking Ukraine after their Alaska meeting. Well, guess what? The strikes didn't stop and there were no consequences. No consequences. Take a look at this.
The drone and missile strikes that took place overnight in Ukraine. General Keith Kellogg, the president's special envoy, has described these attacks as egregious. Do you agree with that description, and do you view President Putin as an impediment to getting peace between these two countries?
Well, it's not about if I agree, it's about what the president thinks, and I know what the president thinks because I talked to him about this. He was not happy about this news, but he was also not surprised. These are two countries that have been at war for a very long time. Russia launched this attack on Kyiv, and likewise, Ukraine recently dealt a blow to Russia's oil refineries. They have taken out, as a matter of fact, 20% of Russia's oil.
I'm sorry, but this is complete and utter BS. When Caroline Leavitt says, quote, he's not happy about this news, but he's also not surprised. Why don't you use any of the leverage that you have as the president of the United States to stop the strikes that are currently going on? What do you mean you're not happy? You said there would be severe consequences. You said that you would make sure Putin is not able to strike any further. Now there's no leverage we can use. There's no soft or hard power we can use whatsoever. Let's read what Zelensky said about this overnight. He said, now, as our people are dealing with the consequences of one of the most large-scale Russian terrorist attacks, we see yet another attempt by Hungarian officials to portray black as white and shift blame for the ongoing war onto Ukraine. In Ukraine, we responded positively to all proposals from the world regarding a ceasefire and real diplomacy. The only one who rebuffed them was Russia, which is true. Over and over and over, Zelensky and Ukraine have agreed to any framework that Trump has proposed. It was initially this minerals deal back in February, which Zelensky agreed to. He said, of course, I'll do this minerals deal if it means that we get weaponry. Then in March, there was a 30-day ceasefire they were trying to negotiate. Zelensky immediately agreed and laid down all of his weapons. Putin was the one who refused to agree and refused to play ball. Then, as time went on, there were more and more meetings that took place in Europe, negotiations, ceasefires that Zelensky was all game for. Putin is the one who's prolonging this because he only benefits. You want to know how he benefits? Just look at the photos attached here. He's able to continue striking, continue gaining territory. Meanwhile, he uses the negotiations as a cover, as a ruse. Meanwhile, this is the position that our president's taking. There's no moral clarity in play here. And that's Putin's goal, is to remove any sort of moral clarity from the situation and muddy the waters. Listen to what Trump says. Zelensky is not exactly innocent. It takes two people to tango. What do you mean it takes two people to tango with a peace deal? A war can be launched unilaterally. A war can be launched by one party into another nation, and it can be ended by one party.
Now, I have to also see, because not everybody, Zelensky's not exactly innocent either, okay? It takes two people to tango, and I say it all the time.
What does that mean, Zelensky's not innocent? Has he made mistakes in his life? Sure, but none of them amount to Ukraine being invaded unilaterally. What do you mean he's not innocent?
You got to get them together. I get along with Zelensky now, but we have a much different relationship because now we're not paying any money to Ukraine. Stop that. We're paying money to ourselves. What's happening is NATO is buying all of the equipment and paying in full.
By the way, even under the Biden administration, the deal that we had set up was quite beneficial. We would give them our old stockpiled military equipment that we would have to dispose of anyways. Ukraine would get to use it on the front lines, and then we create manufacturing jobs while recreating them. Now, what Trump has done works too. Trump's Ukraine deal also works. He says that NATO buys the equipment from us and we get the money. That also is a fine way of giving Ukraine weaponry, but as long as you are inflicting maximum damage on Vladimir Putin, and that's not what Trump is doing whatsoever. We have one more clip of Governor Pritzker just randomly being brought up in the press conference for no reason.
Go ahead.
With respect to Labor Day, one of the most underrepresented groups right now are police officers. 30,000 police officers short in America right now. To Brandon's question, 1,300 short in Chicago, 3,000 short in New York, 500 short here.
Look who it is. Is it just me? That is Steve Gruber. Wait, this is Gruber. This is the guy that we debated a few weeks ago. Remember? We were just on this guy's show.
In Washington, D.C. What can the White House, what can the president do to help recruitment of police officers? He's done well with the military and Border Patrol. What can be done to get more police officers on the streets of America?
Well, the president has certainly been very successful in recruiting federal law enforcement. If you look at the ICE recruitment campaign that was led by he and our Secretary of Homeland Security, we've seen more than, I believe, 130,000 applicants to join ICE, which is just amazing. There's more applicants now than there are jobs to fill, and we're very grateful for that. Clearly, Americans want to serve their communities. They just need a leader who encourages them to do so. So maybe Governor Pritzker should spend less time demonizing the police, more time trying to recruit more police.
That's not his name. It's Governor Pritzker. I live in Chicago, and he's not demonized the police. Never would I ever want to defund the police. That's never something that I would get behind. I can guarantee you Governor Pritzker doesn't want to defund the police. I mean, with a preliminary Google search, he's increased funding for police support, for intervention programs, and increased funding for both state and local law enforcement so that they have better training, better psychological evals, and more transparency, which is the way to do it. You don't want to defund the police. I think that is a bad idea. It's a bad slogan. It's a losing slogan. You can say that you want to reallocate funds so police are better trained and they're not busting people for marijuana. They're focusing on actual crime. That's a better argument. And really quickly, please make sure you have a safer and savvier relationship with the internet by using Surfshark VPN. I've been using Surfshark while I travel to other states and film things. I oftentimes have to connect to sketchy Wi-Fi at airports or cafes or even hotels, and I used to do it with no protection whatsoever until Surfshark VPN came in. They now have my back, and if anyone tries to hack my data, or if I'm ever connected to an unsecure spot, they literally have me covered. All of my data is encrypted, so even if someone did manage to intercept it, they just see a scrambled mess. There's also scenarios where I'm trying to watch a movie and it says, this content isn't available in your region. Well, Surfshark also has me covered there. They let me connect to servers in over 100 countries, which expands your media library. Surfshark is legit. It covers unlimited devices. You can get it on your laptop, your phone, your tablet. I have it on all of those and the TV in the living room, and I highly recommend checking it out. So here's the deal. Click the top link in the description or go to surfshark.com/Mockler and use code Mockler for 4 extra months. One more time, that is the top link in the description or surfshark.com/Mockler. Thank you to Surfshark, and thank you to you all for making this possible.